Hello there. It's good to see you. Today is May 3rd, 2020, and this is my show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak. We just celebrated 1 month anniversary yesterday, and you could check out that show. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, and then you can always see the shows and not miss a single one. Today, we're still celebrating Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo is May 5th, but this is like the Cinco de Mayo weekend. So we're kind of in a festive mood. Hopefully all of you went to church today, today's Sunday. Unfortunately all the churches are closed. So you kind of have to worship with your family at home. But it's a good chance to connect with your family and worship together as a family. And hopefully you're doing that every day. Parents need to be like Christian spiritual parents to their children, right? I'd recommend that. Today we're going to talk about several things. And since today is Cinco de Mayo, I have some photos from another trip that I went to. Kind of prolonging our one month anniversary issue or episode. And so stay tuned for exciting vacation photos and more exciting vacation stories. So that's a little bit later on. I think you'll really like the photos and the stories. So you have something to look forward to. But before we kind of go into the numbers, today is World Press Freedom Day. And you see there, we're celebrating that in our show. Those of you who are following me and want to vote for me know that I'm a big supporter of the First Amendment, freedom of speech. And so this day is kind of important because it's World Press Freedom Day, for the press to have the freedom to report what they want, and also kind of provide perspectives or opinions that they want. And this COVID-19 update by Heerak is a form of media expression, right? It's kind of like journalism, because I am giving you an update on what is going on with COVID-19, and I give you my own thoughts, so my own commentary. So this is a news broadcast that is like next generation, This is a news broadcast for the millennials, Generation Z, Generation Y, and all of you cool Generation X and boomers as well. And so it includes everyone. And so this is like a news show, media. So we engage in freedom of speech in this show. Obviously, this is a kind of a freedom of press at work. Same with my Twitter page, Heerak for Congress, Heerak #4, Congress. That represents freedom of press and is protected by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. So I'm very proud to be an American citizen and to have the First Amendment protect my right to freedom of speech, freedom of ideas, freedom of religion, and freedom of political expression. So I actively engage in these rights and freedoms that I have in this show and in my Twitter account, Heerak for Congress. So keep watching this show and follow me also on Twitter. A lot of interesting stuff and insights that will interest you. So I hope that you will support me and my push for freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, the First Amendment rights. I hope that you will vote for me on November 3rd, 2020, which is the general election in Virginia. So I hope to look forward to thousands of votes from my fans. So let's go to the numbers. Um, our numbers are kind of decreasing in terms of COVID-19 death, which is good. So it's back to pre Holy Week, pre Passion Week numbers. So we have about 1,310 people dead in 24-hour period. So that's a promising thing. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if that's the new normal. I mean, we've had that number for a few days. So hopefully, not this number. It kind of started going down from over 2,000, and now it's been going down. So it hasn't been consistently this number. It represents, smaller figure than yesterday, and yesterday's figure was smaller than the day before. So, I'm still not sure if this is the normal trajectory, because the problem is a lot of states are actually reporting more, more cases, more ICU admissions. So I don't know if this is just kind of a few day fluke or 1 or 2 day fluke, and then we're going to jump back up to like 3,000. We don't know. So I'm kind of reluctant to get too excited because if you remember, we got a little bit excited with my Christmas tree, if you see that episode, and we start celebrating and the death toll jumped way up. So yeah, I'm a little bit reluctant to celebrate this and say, wow, we're in a new normal. And as you might have seen President Trump speak today, he's kind of thinking that there will be 80 or 90,000 people who die from COVID-19. So he's kind of raised his figures from the previous figures he gave. But he did talk about like 100,000 people dying, I think a month ago. So his figure is kind of fluctuating based on the reports that he receives from his experts. So we'll see. As you know, my prediction is that we're going to have about 1 million Americans die from COVID-19 by August 2020. I mean, I hope not, but that's my prediction based on the patterns that I see. And before President Trump spoke today at the town hall on Fox News, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan spoke, and he was talking about how the numbers are rising in Maryland, and he doesn't think he's at the plateau at all. So Maryland numbers are climbing, Virginia numbers are climbing, Washington, D.C. numbers are climbing. There are many other states throughout the United States where numbers are climbing, which includes California, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey is continuing to climb, and New York, even Governor Cuomo said today, he's just kind of shocked by continuing death numbers in the state. And so it doesn't seem like we're getting any better. So I think the numbers that we see may not adequately explain what's going on throughout the 50 states. So we may have a spike up next week sometime. So I don't want to get too optimistic. Obviously, I'm hopeful, but it's important to be realistic as well. And so you'll get the truth here in this show, COVID-19 Update by Heerak. So tune in every day and watch this show. So you get not only the news and the statistics, but brilliant insight from Heerak Christian Kim, independent candidate for U.S. Congress in Virginia's 8th District. That includes Arlington, Alexandria Falls Church, and Fairfax County, parts of Fairfax County. And so, help me beat Don. Don Beyer is the current incumbent congressman in Virginia's 8th District. And he's a Democrat. I'm independent. I believe I have better ideas and I can do a better job. That's why I'm asking you to vote for me and not for Don Beyer, even if you voted for him last time and last few times. So anyway, just mule it over and think and see who will do a better job, and just vote for the one who you think will do a better job. I think that's me. I'm wearing my gray shirt, Georgetown University graduate student government. As you know, I'm the vice president of Georgetown University graduate student government. I was elected over a year ago, I think last year, March or April. And then I held my term as vice president of graduate student government for 1 year. And we've done a lot of fun things. I gave a tour for new entering graduate students. We had a Christmas party in December, which was amazing. And we had a Halloween party, and we had a lot of interesting socials. Um, and so you can check out the photos on GradGov Facebook page, which can be accessed through gradgov.com. Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about what's going on at Georgetown in terms of 9,000 graduate students are there in graduate student population, and a lot of them will be graduating in May with their degrees and going on and doing a lot of good things around the world. And so I'm pretty excited for them and their futures. Unfortunately, we're not going to have a graduation ceremony because of COVID-19. But I'm sure those who are trained by Georgetown will do a lot of good things. So, yeah, so good luck to you guys. Congratulations on your graduation and your achievement. Yeah, so I'm happy as your leader, Vice President, to congratulate you. Yeah, so once I become a U.S. Congressman, I hope to hire some Georgetown graduate students, from School of Foreign Service. I'm the president of Georgetown Collaborative Diplomacy Initiative. That is the premier diplomacy group at Georgetown University, and it's a group at School of Foreign Service. And I mentioned I'm the first non-School of Foreign Service person to become the president of that group. So I made history at School of Foreign Service. It's actually 100-year anniversary of Walsh School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University. So we're making history on its 100th anniversary. Yeah, so hopefully, when I become a U.S. Congressman, I'll use a lot of good people from, Walsh School of Foreign Service. We have a General Secretary, Marta Sidoriak, who's from Philadelphia. She did her bachelor's at Temple University, and she did 3 years of work at Ukraine. She's Ukrainian, and I think she still speaks to her parents in Ukrainian. So she spent like 3 years in Ukraine, and she came to Masters of Science in Foreign Service. So she's entered this year, and she's our General Secretary for Georgetown Collaborative Diplomacy Initiative. Hi, Marta. So hopefully you're doing well in your finals. This is a finals week. So so a lot of Georgetown students are studying really hard. So maybe she'll be willing to work in my office, if I become a U.S. Congressman. So there are a lot of great people. I'm kind of thinking about people who I can hire once I become the U.S. Congressman. So it's kind of exciting thinking about that, because I think I have a fairly good chance of becoming the congressman, because you know how good I am and you want to vote for me. So I'm pretty excited about that. A lot could happen from now until November, obviously. And I'm predicting that 1 million American citizens will die by August. There's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to happen before November elections. But do vote for me, because I can lead you into the promised land. I'm providing you all this helpful information that can help you and help you and your family survive. And I'm giving you a lot of good ideas. So you know that I will be a great leader. So vote for me on November 3rd. Whatever happens from now until then. Unfortunately, I see a lot of tragedies from now until November, just because we don't have a vaccine, we don't have a cure. Death numbers are increasing. Mayor Bowser in Washington, D.C. originally said she thought the peak would be in June, but I'm not even sure. We may have a peak later than that. That is to say, there's going to be a lot of COVID death in Washington, D.C. Maryland's governor talked about how he's not close to a peak, so Maryland's death numbers will continue to climb. They have over 1,000 deaths, and Virginia's death numbers are climbing. We're actually in the epicenter of Virginia. Fairfax County is kind of like the epicenter, and part of Fairfax County is Virginia's 8th district. So in Fairfax County, you have Virginia's 8th district, Virginia's 11th district, and Virginia's 10th district. So so that's Fairfax County is kind of like the epicenter, and It's kind of spreading to Falls Church in Arlington and Alexandria. So, there's a high probability that this area will have a lot of COVID-19 deaths, kind of connecting the dots with Washington, D.C. and Maryland, especially because Maryland near D.C. has a lot of deaths, like in Montgomery County. Sorry, guys. We have a lot of people from our cohort who are in Montgomery County. I hope none of you die from COVID. But, I mean, to be realistic, the rate things are going, you should not be surprised if somebody dies. That's the unfortunate reality of a pandemic, a global pandemic, where death rate is rising. So I shared, once we graduate and start working as nurses, clinical nurse leader. I'm in clinical nurse leader cohort 2020. We have 26 cohort members. There's 3 guys and 23 ladies. And once we start working as nurses, because COVID-19 is raging, and they said the second wave will be worse than the first wave, and that's the fall of 2020 when we'll kind of start working as nurses. And then, they say it's going to go on for 2 years, and we may not have any vaccines until then, in which case, some of us will die, most likely, just because, a lot of nurses will die because they're at the front line, and not everybody has enough PPEs, and that's still a problem. As I shared, you're supposed to throw away your PPE after one-time use. And as far as I know, people are not doing that, which means they become vulnerable for infection. So nursing is probably the most dangerous job right now. And I'm predicting that there will be around 10,000 nurses who will probably die by December. I'm predicting 1 million US citizens will die by August. And I think about 10,000 nurses will die by December if what the scientists say is true, that second wave is going to be more deadly than the first wave. And if we don't have vaccine by the time the second wave starts, which some say can be early as September, October. So as you know, my theory is that this COVID is going to keep continuing, and keep growing. That's more my theory. But other scientists are saying that it's going to kind of have a wave. I'm more of the school like it's just going to continue to grow consistently. That's just the way I'm kind of approaching this. That's been my thought since the beginning, and you could check my episodes for that. But I've been fairly consistently right from the beginning of my show, and actually proven experts wrong on many points. So I do bring in insights from science, nursing, healthcare, history, Jewish studies, literature, mathematics. I bring a lot of expertise to bear in order to analyze the situation. So it's not surprising that I'm more right than even some experts, because they're approaching it maybe from their own field. I approach it interdisciplinary way. And University of Pennsylvania is really big on interdisciplinary approach to problem solving. And that's something that I bring as being an expert in many different fields. So keep watching this show. It's going to help you. Confirmed cases in the United States, we went from 1,127,712 to 1,157,753. So around 30,000 writings. That's kind of typical. And the death rate is going up by 1,310. So that's 66,364 yesterday. 24 hours later, we have 67,674. So there's a tremendous growing of death, unfortunately. I'm predicting that 1 million American citizens will die by August, and I think I'm going to be right, because this is only May. beginning of May. By end of May, I think we'll have far more than 100,000 Americans dead. I would predict, I mean, yeah, it may even be more than 200,000. But, so I'm not still sure about exactly what, but I'm fairly certain we're going to break 100,000 without any problem. We may even break 200,000 or even 300,000. Let's see. I mean, my long-term projection is by August, we're going to have about 1 million die. So that's my projection. And, I'm not happy to make that projection, but just looking at the data and approaching it from multi approach, interdisciplinary approach, I feel that I'm right. Sorry, President Trump, I disagree with you on this. I think 1 million people will die by August. So I'm going to stick to that. Obviously, I don't have all the information that President Trump has. He's the president, so he has all the information. But still, I mean, with the information that we have, I think I could safely say that we're going to have about 1 million deaths by August. Just looking at our projection, we're the #1 nation for COVID death in the world, and our deaths are kind of multiplying and kind of growing and chomping up greater percentage of world COVID death with each passing day. So I think sooner or later, COVID death in the United States may even be over 50% of all COVID death in the world, at least if we keep going at this rate. Because right now, there are over 100 countries in the world, and the countries with the most death is United States of America. And after United States of America, it's the NATO countries, our allies, NATO countries, like Italy, Spain, England, France. So, it's not like everybody's dying around the world. It's just Americans and Europeans. So it's hard to say this is a global pandemic from that vantage point. It may be more accurate to say it's a NATO pandemic that kills members of NATO, NATO. In Russia, like less than 2,000 people have died so far. I mean, geez, And so our previous enemies, USSR, they're not here feeling it. Not many people are dying in USSR or former USSR republic nations. Not many people are dying over there. So, I think more people die from other things like common cold and the flu. Yeah, I mean, Russia only has about 1,000 deaths from COVID. I mean, what is that? They have less total death than like our daily numbers. That's Russia. So it's hard to say this is a global pandemic in the true sense of the term. I mean, it is a global pandemic because every country has somebody like infected, or almost every country has that. So in that sense, it's a global pandemic, but it's not a global pandemic in the sense that everybody's suffering the same way. That's definitely not true. US is suffering and dying the most, and then European countries, our ally countries. Our countries that are our enemies don't have that many deaths, like Venezuela, Cuba, China, Russia. None of our enemy countries have that many deaths. No, it's just us, United States, and our allies, European countries. That's where all the death is occurring. So that's why I'm sticking to my argument that COVID-19 is a next generation biological viral weapon. It's a genetically modified virus. So Chinese did not create it from scratch, but I'm sticking to my theory that it's a genetically modified viral weapon that has precision, smart accuracy to target enemies of China, economic enemies, political enemies, whatever you said, because China is communist, we're democracy, right? So we're political enemies, and they're economic competition, right? China wants to be #1 economic power in the world. US wants to be #1 economic power in the world. Two countries cannot be #1. So President Trump, initiated tariff attacks And I think China took it a little bit seriously, and they've just kind of attacked us with a preemptive next generation biological weapon. So that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it because it is really strange that only Americans and our allies, European countries, are having these large numbers of death, and it's not occurring anywhere else. And that's only possible if this is a precision biological weapon, next generation weapon, like a smart bomb, like a missile that is guided and hits the target. If you saw the movie Angel Has Fallen, I saw that movie over the weekend. Angel Has Fallen, it's a good movie. They have these little drones that are like guided and they're precision, so they hit the target. So you can do that with next generation weapons, hardware weapons that are technologically based, and you can do that with biological weapons as well. I mean, it's next generation. I don't think US technology is there yet. I think our scientists are kind of inferior to Chinese scientists, unfortunately. But I think Chinese have developed these superior next generation biological weapons. So my prediction is that China as a nation is about 20 to 30 years ahead of us on biological warfare. And I think they focused on that far more than, let's say, conventional warfare, which we focused on. And I think that's our mistake. The United States, the Pentagon, Department of Defense focused on traditional warfare, internet warfare, space warfare, but they didn't focus on biological warfare. So most of the money went to non-biological warfare, whereas I think Chinese concentrated their wealth on developing next generation biological warfare, because I guess the rationale that they might have had is it's not how expensive the weapon is, it's whether the weapon achieves its target, right? And China, if it created the COVID-19 virus as a viral weapon to destroy America's economic infrastructure and economic infrastructures of our allies, they've accomplished their goal. I mean, we don't have a vaccine in sight because, as I said, our scientists are about 20, 30 years behind Chinese scientists in genetic engineering, genetic modification, genetic enhancement, genetic manipulation. So that's the expertise you need to find a solution to this, because you need to be able to manipulate genetics like DNA, RNA, and we just don't have that technology. I believe the Chinese do. That's my theory, is that Chinese have made a breakthrough in genetics research, and they are 2-3 generations beyond CRISPR, which is like a gene splicing technology that's considered most advanced in Western Hemisphere. My theory is that Chinese broke through several new barriers in genetic research, and that this COVID-19 represents a viral weapon that is precision, that could target certain genetic makeup. And the Chinese, obviously, if they're going to employ this as a preemptive weapon, they would have done research as to what kind of genetic material they need to target. So it's accomplishing its goal, I would argue, just looking at the death numbers in the United States, death numbers in our ally countries in Europe. The precision COVID-19 is accomplishing the objective. If this is, in fact, a biological weapons of mass destruction that the Chinese created, and I'm saying that they did. And I'm challenging the Department of Defense to keep investigating this, because I feel I'm right, just based on the evidence. So let's go to Africa. Top COVID-19 cases in Africa. We're talking about a continent where there isn't much technology. There isn't much healthcare. They don't have many advanced healthcare equipment. So a typical global pandemic would slaughter them. Like in Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, it killed a lot of people in third world countries just because they didn't have antibiotics, they didn't have medication, healthcare, hospitals, diagnostic equipment. So there's a slaughter. Not many people died in the 1918 pandemic in the United States, because we had all these, advanced healthcare expertise and devices and medicines. So over 50 million people died around the world, and we didn't really have that many people die in comparison. But this is completely different. COVID-19 is killing advanced nations and sparing third world countries, which is scientifically strange, right? It doesn't make sense scientifically. And that's why I'm saying this is a genetically modified biological weapon, because genetically modified biological weapon would go against rules of science. You see, like if you create a genetically modified plant, it doesn't follow the rules of science because it's genetically modified, right? So whereas a plant would be normally consumed by, caterpillar or butterfly or whatever insects, genetically modified plants are not consumed by these insects. Do you see what I mean? It goes against the rules of nature. So when you genetically modify something, it doesn't follow rules of nature. And so that's why I'm saying you're not going to discover a vaccine through natural research, because this is not a natural virus. You need to use genetic engineering to engineer a type of cure. So first, you have to understand how COVID-19 has been genetically modified. And I'm arguing that we're about 20, 30 years behind Chinese scientists in genetic engineering. So I am arguing that we probably will not be able to catch up those 20, 30 years in the next few years. It's just, I mean, when one government pours research into one area for over a decade with all their resources, it's hard to catch up to them if they're number 2 economy in the world, right? I mean, we spend all our technology money on internet, right? Cyber engineering, cyber security, and Chinese probably figured they could not beat us in cyber security, cyber warfare. So they probably thought, what is the way we can defeat the United States and its allies, the Europe? We can't beat them in cyber warfare. We can't beat them in conventional warfare. We can't beat them in nuclear warfare. What can we beat them in? Biological warfare. And I think they discovered that early on, like a couple decades ago. And then they've kind of been focusing on that for several decades. So that's my theory. Obviously, unfortunately, our CIA and NSA, our intelligence and covert operatives haven't penetrated China. So they have absolutely no idea what Chinese are doing. So they probably did not know that these biological weapons were being developed. I mean, let's be honest here. There are problems with CIA. I actually applied to be a professor, CIA professor, because I feel so bad that CIA is so inferior that I felt like I need to go to CIA and train CIA operatives and upgrade CIA. So I actually applied to be a professor training CIA operatives in order to upgrade the institution, but I mean, our CIA has become inferior. This is a proof. The CIA did not know when India and nuclear bomb tested their nuclear bomb, showing the world that they're nuclear power. Do you know that CIA did not know that they were developing nuclear bombs? So how are you going to know if China is developing next generation biological weapons if CIA did not even know that Pakistan and India, 2 large countries, were developing nuclear bombs? You see what I'm saying? So I'm not surprised that CIA, NSA have no idea what's going on, with this biological weapon. I mean, I'm arguing that it's a biological weapon, and I think time will prove me correct. I mean, I don't think Chinese will admit it, because the moment the Chinese said, we created this biological weapon and we attacked USA and Europe with it, you know what we're going to do? We'll fire all of our nuclear missiles to every place in China, there would not be China. That's what President Trump would do. And so that's probably what President George W. Bush should have done as well. I can't speak for the Democrats. They seem kind of soft to me. But like definitely like President Trump who preemptively fired all the nuclear missiles at China if China admitted that this was a biological weapon. So you're not going to have Chinese ever admitting that this is a biological weapon. Chinese are too smart for that. They're not going to. I mean, if they're smart enough to create a biological weapon that's next generation precision, only killing Americans and Europeans in large numbers, sparing all the third world countries without any medicine and medical equipment or healthcare services or healthcare experts. I mean, geez, I'm sure they're smart enough not to know, not to admit that it's a biological weapon. So they'll just reap the benefits, right? As more and more people die, as our infrastructure gets destroyed, 1 to 2 years later, everything will be completely gone, and we'll be like a third world nation. And then China will just come in and swoop in and just kind of treat us like a third world nation the way we treat other nations like third world nations. I mean, they're wealthy. China can exist by itself right now because of all their wealth, thanks to President Bill Clinton giving them all of Americans' wealth. They don't need any other nation to survive or exist. They have all the natural resources they need in China. They don't need anything. So yeah, so that's unfortunate for us because we're kind of redundant in a sense from a Chinese perspective. But let's go to the China or the Africa figures, which proves my point as well. You have to look at statistical data. You have to look at social scientific data. You cannot just look at the virus and try to extrapolate from the virus. You have to look at the whole data from all over the world. That's what I do. And this show is superior to CNN, Fox News, BBC, Sky News, ABC, NBC, CBS, because I bring everything in. And that's why I think I'm more right than President Trump. I think he's wrong. I don't think, I think we're going to have 1 million Americans dead by August. President Trump may be saying that just to be optimistic. Maybe he actually believes that 1 million people will be dead, but he just don't want to say that because he's the president. He doesn't want to discourage people. I understand that. But I'm here to give you facts so you and your family can survive. Ideally, everybody survives, but even if your friend and co-workers don't survive, you can survive by watching this show. So if you hate your coworkers, don't tell them about this show. No, tell them about this show. Don't be a mean guy. Tell everybody about this show so everybody can watch and everybody can survive, right? Because knowledge is power. The more you know, the more chance you're going to survive. That's why you kind of see this show every day. I give you information that doesn't exist anywhere else. And I bring together facts that maybe your governor is trying to hide. Maybe CIA is too embarrassed to talk about this because they're like 20, 30 years behind China in biological warfare. That's my theory. But I love the CIA. That's why I applied to be the CIA professor. This was a couple years ago. I'm now running for U.S. Congress and Virginia State Districts to vote for me. I will upgrade CIA, FBI, NSA, all the intelligence agencies, so we will not have this kind of problem again. I will talk to fellow U.S. congressmen if I'm elected to upgrade our military to be next generation. We will not experience this again if we end up surviving COVID-19, which is still a question mark right now. If you vote for me for U.S. Congress, I will make it so that our Department of Defense will not be this vulnerable again. This will not happen again. Because you're going to have Leonardo da Vinci of 21st century, Heerak Christian Kim, fixing everything once he becomes U.S. congressman. Yeah, I'll talk to all the other congressmen and show them what is important, and we'll work together to strengthen our military. If we survive, there's a chance that the United States may not survive COVID-19, that we may end up becoming like a third world nation or at best second world nation. But certainly we're not going to be in the first world nation because look at this. We have 30,000 people unemployed. Economic experts are saying our economic situation is as bad as 1930s. Yeah. So, let's deal with facts and reality. I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm not trying to be negative. But if we cannot find solution to COVID-19, or if we do not survive by God's grace or God's miracle, then there's a high likelihood United States of America may become a second nation or even a third nation in the next 3 years, just logically speaking. So, maybe you should go back to your home country. If you're Chinese American, maybe you should go back to China, where you came from. Or if you're Korean, maybe you should go back to Korea because most likely these will be the superpowers in the next, 3 years later. If the United States and Europe do not survive, if you're from Japan, go back to Japan. Or if you're from Africa, maybe you should go back to Africa. Your chance of, you know, your chance may be better. But there are a lot of opportunities in Africa. I mean, if there are smart people to develop it, they could rule the world from Africa. Obviously, China's there, so that's probably not going to happen. Because China wants to control the world and rule the world and control the economy of the world. And from what I understand, China is everywhere in Africa. So they're using their wealth wisely for global domination. China has been making these chess moves to globally dominate, and they have a strong presence all over Africa. I mean, they've already built a global infrastructure so that if United States becomes a second or third world nation and all these European nations become second or third world nations, China has built its own infrastructure of countries in Africa, which they probably will start enriching, and in Latin America, that they won't need United States or European countries to run the global economy. So you're looking at a potential paradigmatic shift in global economy where it used to be that New York was the center and US dollar was the center, and Beijing kind of had to kowtow to us to be part of our world. But because of COVID-19, if this continues the way it does, and more Americans die and our infrastructure gets destroyed, 3 years later, Beijing will be the new center by default of global economy. And IMF and International Monetary Fund and World Bank agencies like this will be in Beijing, under Beijing auspices and control, and all the countries around the world, including the United States, England, France, Italy, Spain, will have to beg Beijing for handouts to survive. So that's the new reality 3 years later that could happen. And 3 years later, quote me, because I said this right here on this show, I hate to be right, but I think we're headed that way. And I think most economic experts are beginning to see my position. So if you are a professor of economics at Georgetown or University of Pennsylvania, Stanford, watch this show, because I bring an interdisciplinary approach to analyze things. So if you're just an expert on economics, you're limited because you're just working within one field. If you're an expert just in political science, you're limited because you're just expert in one field. I'm an expert on many fields, so I bring all kinds of interdisciplinary approaches to solving world's problems and to analyzing COVID-19. And so even if you're a Nobel Prize winning economist, you need to watch this show if you want to help America survive. But before we can find a solution, we need to do assessment. And so at this assessment stage, we have to kind of have hypotheses, predictors, right? And so I'm saying there's a high chance that US economy and economies of all of its allies will be at the third world level, most likely, and at best case scenario, second world in 3 years later. Because China's economy is not suffering right now at all. Japan, from what I understand, 100% of the Japanese are going to their work, wearing their little masks. They don't have that many deaths, Like I think they have under 1,000 deaths. We'll come around and do Japan again, yeah. But let's look at Africa, where a lot of Chinese representatives of the Chinese Red Army are. building infrastructure on behalf of Africa, but also kind of linking it to China. South Africa, which has the most number of cases, and so I ranked them according to cases. It has 6,783 cases, and the total number of deaths, look at that, 131 deaths. In South Africa, I mean, I've seen shows from BBC. They're not social distancing. They're not even wearing a mask because they can't afford the mask in poor villages. And they're not social distancing. They're not dying. They're not getting the cases. This is what I'm saying. COVID-19 is a smart biological weapon, next generation smart weapon, targeting what it wants to target. The Chinese have created to target United States and our allies, NATO countries. Number 2, Egypt, 6,465 cases, 429 deaths. And I assure you, they're not social distancing, isolating in Egypt. No one's dying. I mean, 429 people died, but geez, you could have 429 people die riding bicycle in Washington, D.C. and getting hit by a car. You know, I mean, I don't know how many bikers died being hit by a car in D.C., but like in New York, you know, maybe like around 429 people. Number 3, Morocco has 4,903 cases. Look at the death. 174 deaths. All these third world countries. I mean, geez. I mean, South Africa may be like a second world country, but geez, they have like villages where there's like no electricity. They're not getting COVID and dying. I mean, this is not a natural virus. I assure you, if this was a natural virus, people should be dying in the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands right now in South Africa, Egypt, and Morocco. We're not seeing this because this is a precision, smart biological weapon targeting certain genetic makeup that Chinese have identified in US population and in European NATO country populations. I mean, how else would you explain this? If you're a scientist, how do you explain this? Does this fit the rules of science? Virus does not discriminate based on race, color, and ethnicity. Are you kidding me? I mean, look at this. It's obviously discriminating. I mean, it's prejudiced against America and European countries. It's saving the Africans. So don't tell me this is a natural virus. I mean, just where's your proof that this is a natural virus? I'm presenting to you proof that it's not a natural virus. And I think I'm more convincing to the American people and everybody watching this show right now than you are, all you experts of science. You're not very convincing. Because if this was a natural virus, then it should be killing millions of people in third world countries who don't have medicine and technology. They don't have antiviral medication. Geez, they have nothing. They're poor. They make like less than $20 a month. And they're not dying. If this is a natural virus, they should be all dropping dead right and left. But that's not happening because this is a precision next generation biological weapon that China created, I'm arguing, to destroy America's economic, political, social infrastructure and make us into third world nations. Yeah, and then Algeria has 4,474 with 463 deaths. It's like peanuts. And then Nigeria, look at this. It's like double digits. They have 2,558 cases and 87 deaths. 87 deaths, that's it. Can you believe that? Let's go to next. Let's get a little bit more cheery because it is Cinco de Mayo weekend. So let's try to push aside some of the negative stuff, but we do have to be realistic to survive. That's why I give you realism, facts, because I don't want you to like live in fake world. We don't want any fake news. So I'm going to give you the truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God. But now we're going to celebrate Cinco de Mayo. I'm going to cheer you up a little bit. It is a Cinco de Mayo weekend and Mexicans are maybe not celebrating because of COVID. Maybe they are. I don't know. Actually, Cinco de Mayo is the 5th of May. So we'll see if the Mexicans celebrate on 5th of May. But in America, we generally celebrate Cinco de Mayo the weekend before. because we have work week Monday through Friday. That's why this weekend was Cinco de Mayo weekend. So I'm going to cheer you up by sharing some photos. As I shared with you, I lived in Jewish state of Israel for over 3 years. I'm an expert of Jewish studies. So I went to Israel as a visiting research fellow at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem with funding from the Goldsmith Foundation in New York, Friends of Hebrew University, which is the Hebrew University of Jerusalem in New York, and the Israeli government. And so I did my research. First year I was there, I did my research with Professor Daniel Schwartz. And he went to Hebrew Union College in Maryland. And then he immigrated to Israel, made Aliya. We call that made Aliya. And then he rose to the top because he's a brilliant guy. And became the chairman of the Department of Jewish History. So for the first year, I worked with him intensely on Jewish identity questions. He's an Orthodox Jew. He's actually like Haredi. Haredi means like ultra-religious, kind of like people with black hat, you see in Brooklyn, who hang out with the other Orthodox Jewish community members. They're ultra-Orthodox. So Professor Daniel Schwartz kind of is in that social circle. So in Israel, most of his friends are Mea Shearim. So he's ultra-religious, ultra-Orthodox. He has like 12 kids. And I'm sure they're all brilliant like him. So he was my, he was my mentor when I was in Israel, my first year mentor. So he guided me in terms of how to ask the right questions about Jewish identity, Jewish, group identity, Jewish individual identity. We talked about the Holocaust and how that impacts Jewish research, all levels of Jewish research. I'm a member of a Association for Jewish Studies, so I can teach any area in Jewish studies. So let's say if I become a professor at Georgetown University, I could teach the Holocaust class. I could teach, Second Temple Judaism. I could teach any period in Jewish history at the university level because I'm a certified expert on Jewish studies. And I think I shared with you, we have our annual conference in Washington, D.C., annual conference for the Association of Jewish Studies. And I'm seeking to be a chair of Jewish history section. And this is the biggest professional organization on Jewish studies in the world. So every professor of Jewish study is a member of this, if they're Jewish, because it's predominantly Jewish ethnically. I'm like one of the few Gentiles, but I like Jews, so I joined. But most Gentiles who are experts of Jewish studies, they join. There's like a Gentile version made up of mostly Christian clergy. Like it's called Society of Biblical Literature. It has like over 10,000 members. And most Christians who are experts of Jewish studies are members of that. They don't want to join the Association for Jewish Studies. I'm like, what's wrong with you? I like Jewish people, but not everybody does, I guess. But anyway, so I'm hoping to chair the Jewish studies session. This December in the Hanukkah time. Christmas time in DC. So we'll see. I'm going to hear back like in the summer. So I'm kind of hoping and kind of excited about it because I think I'll be able to chair it. So So during that first year when I was in Israel, I made a lot of friends, in Israel. And during a 1 week break, we had like a 1 week break. I'm like, should I stay in Israel and just kind of do my thing, or should I go and explore? I mean, I'm so close to like all these countries near Israel. Maybe I should go and like, look for stuff and, tour around. I mean, there are a lot of fun places. And should I just stay in Israel, during vacation time? And I said, no, I'm going to hop over and see Turkey because I always wanted to see Turkey. A lot of the things in the Bible are in Turkey. The Holy Roman Empire was in Turkey for a while. And I said, and it's it has like a lot of interesting sites that's in the New Testament as well. And I say, so why don't I just go over to Turkey? And I was like, how much does it cost to fly over there? I went to Star Travel. There's like a travel agency for students. Those were in my younger days when I was, I was a visiting research fellow at Hebrew University of Jerusalem, but I was a PhD student at UCLA. So I have my UCLA student card I could use to get cheaper fares at Star Travel. And so it was like $200, around $200 for a round trip to Antalya, which is part of Turkey, from Tel Aviv in Israel. So I'm like, $200. I mean, that's cheaper than flying from Los Angeles to Philadelphia. So I grew up in Philadelphia. I was doing my PhD at UCLA at that time. I'll fly back and forth, and a typical round trip ticket is like $400 or more. Like in summer, it's more. And so I'm like, $200 round trip to Turkey? I said, heck, I'm going to go and see Turkey, places in the Bible. So I didn't really know what to expect, but, on a spur of moment, I just said, I'll spend my vacation week in Turkey. So I just flew over. It was like a 2-hour, 1-hour flight from Tel Aviv to Antalya. And you see the picture of Antalya right there on the corner there next to Turkey, the word Turkey. That's Antalya, the waterfalls of Antalya. Beautiful, ain't it? I took a little boat cruise and met some Turkish college students then, and became friends. Yeah, so like we were all in the boat. I took a picture from the outside. I have photos of them, but I can't find it. So unfortunately, I couldn't share it with you. But they're really nice. There were like 3 or 4 Turkish college students from Antalya, University of Antalya. Yeah, and I learned a lot about Turkey from them. I flew alone because it was like a spur of the moment thing. I was originally just going to stay around and do research because I had my paper accepted at American Oriental Society annual conference to talk about Jewish identity, and that was going to be at University of Chicago. So I was going to do some more research in the library that vacation week. And then I'm like, I mean, I could always read, I could always do research, but how many times I could just, everybody's having, it's a vacation week. I mean, how many times will I have a chance to see Turkey? So I just picked up and left, just on my own without really planning it. So instead of my plan to spend 1 week in library, I just took off to Turkey, and yeah, I'm so glad I did because now with COVID-19, I mean, can you even see Turkey? I mean, and since then, I didn't really get a chance to go back to Turkey, and I thought I could always go to Turkey, that's what I was thinking. But, at the spur of the moment, I decided to go to Turkey, and I'm happy I did because had I not gone to Turkey and seen all this, I probably may not have never seen it, So I flew into Antalya by myself, and I know that several of my Israeli friends went to Turkey for vacation. They had like planned it for several months. And so, I figured I'd run into them, but I'm like, yeah, it may be more fun just like meeting local Yoko, like the Turkish college students that I met in Antalya. So I'm like, well, let's see, let's play it by the ear. I'm that kind of spontaneous, fun kind of guy. So yeah, so I said, let's do the spontaneous thing. And I looked at like Let's Go Turkey kind of books. And they said you could stay for cheap, like hotels, you could stay in cheap hotels for $5 a night. I'm like, whoa, geez, $5 per night for like a hotel room? I'm like, yeah, I'm there. I'm in Turkey. So I didn't have much money because I was I'm expert of Jewish history, but fellowship money, I had some of it. So I'm like, hey, $5 a night, I think I could spend that. I mean, that's like price of a, shawarma, which is like a, lamb, like lamb meat inside a pita bread with Diet Coke. That's like $5. I mean, that's like, you could stay in like a motel, a little, 1-star motel for that, and I say, hey, I'm there, I'm, I spent like hours in the library in a little cubicle. I'm sure, one-star hotel in Turkey will feel like a big room compared to my little library cubicle at Hebrew University of Jerusalem. So, I flew over there. It was so fun, so happy I did that. And you see the three three bread carriers there. The photo, they're walking with all this bread on their head, and they're not even holding it. I don't know how they do it. So I said I have to take a photo, and I have to share it with you. So you see all these interesting stuff in other countries that you don't see in your country, and that's one thing I saw. And then I took a bus from Antalya to Cappadocia. So it was like it was like a 10-hour bus ride, and they had overnight buses. So I'm like, hey, I get to save like $5. A hotel, I could just ride a bus all night long. And the bus fare was like $10. It was like maybe less than $10 for, 10, 12-hour bus ride from Antalya to Cappadocia. Cappadocia is like on the other side of Turkey. I'm like, heck, I'm there. $10 for a bus ride overnight, double the price of a hotel room. But hey, I'm going to be in a new location. So I took the bus, went to Cappadocia. And Cappadocia, as you know, is famous for the three Cappadocians who came up with the Trinitarian formula. And so they explain the relationship between God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit in a way that did credit to the Trinity, and they explained the divinity and humanity of Jesus Christ in a way that kind of satisfied people who kind of had questions about it. So the three Cappadocians are very famous. But anyway, that's where they're from, Cappadocia. So I went there, and there was a lot of early Christians there in Cappadocia. And Cappadocia is one of the coolest places. You would love it there. You could stay in hotel rooms or motel rooms that's made into a cave. So Cappadocia has these naturally occurring caves, and people live in these caves. And they made hotels with these caves as rooms. So I coughed up my $5, in Cappadocian Turkish money, paid for a room. It's like, it was only $5. Yeah. And then I stayed in a cave. Do you see one of those caves right under the word Turkey has? Yeah, those are like cave rooms, So I stayed in one of those. And it ended up that like in my cave motel, so each person stayed in their cave room, but there are several cave rooms. A lot of Australians and New Zealanders were there. And so so we watched Mel Gibson his movie Gallipoli together because it was like, I guess, Anzac Day. So I guess it was around this time. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was around this time that I went on a vacation because I think we just had Anzac Day, right? So yeah, so I had fun just getting to know like Australians and New Zealanders. Hey, mate, and the image I had of Australians and New Zealanders was like Crocodile Dundee. And those of you who have seen like Crocodile Dundee, if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's like funny movie. It's like an action film, and it's funny. Crocodile Dundee. And I'm like, that's the picture I had, and everybody talked like that, which was kind of funny. And they had the same kind of like easygoing personality that Crocodile Dundee does. And so it was kind of cool hanging out with them. And they had this marmalade. It's not butter. I don't know what it's made of. It's horrible. Tastes horrible. But Australians love it, and they spread it over their bread, and they eat it. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. I almost puked the first time I had it, and it never grew on me. I mean, I tried like second or third time, it still tasted horrible. So I just gave up on marmalade. But Australians, they love it, so they're spreading the bread with marmalade, eating it while we're watching Gallipoli with Mel Gibson. He's also Australian. But I met some friends, like you see one of the girls over there. She's waving at me. She's from the hotel, the motel, and became friends. And I got really interested in Australia after that, and Cappadocia has all the ceiling painting. If you see next, you know, the photo next to the photo of my friend who's waving at me, Australian friend, um, you see the ceiling painting by Cappadocians that go all the way back to like third century AD, like hundreds of years, original stuff. And then you see that also on the other side, you see that as well, right? And there's a photo of me there on the bottom, kind of standing, and behind me is like the caves in Cappadocia. But unfortunately, I had to say goodbye to my Aussie friends. You know, they wanted to hang out in Cappadocia longer. But yeah, I went on my own way. And, I saw other sites. You see Troy, that horse in Troy, that's from Troy. And as you know, Helen of Troy, Paris stole Helen, that started a war, right? A lot of wars start over like some guy stealing somebody's woman. you know, it's weird, but it's funny, when you're a historian like me and who studies history, you just get surprised by how wars, like great wars start. It's just amazing. Like Helen of Troy, uh, being wooed and stolen by Paris started a war. And, that was a big war, and so they say Helen has the face that launched 1,000 ships, right? Yeah, and there are other stories of love launching wars. Maybe I'll talk about that in my future episodes, and maybe I'll have photos and my stories on my fun trip, so you can kind of live vicariously through me. I'm the globe-trotting, Renaissance man. So yeah, so you will love my other trips. You may love it more than this one. So stay tuned, and you can see my yesterday. I have my Mexico trip photos and stories. So you could watch yesterday's episode if you want to see that. So I hit Troy. Another place I went to is Ephesus. You see the Ephesus. I'm standing there in the seats there, and I think it's like partly reconstruction, but it was nice. I think the facade of the building you see there, that's original from like ancient times, over 2,000 years ago. And Ephesus, as you know, is where Ephesians was written, Church of Ephesus. So traveling through Turkey, it was great, like connecting with some Bible locations. And I met up with some Christians in Ephesus who were there with their church group, like touring Turkey with their church group. And, we talked about a lot of history, and it was fun just kind of sharing faith and talking the Bible and getting to know other Christian brothers and sisters. It was good. Next to that photo of me in Ephesus is me with Israelis. I didn't know these Israelis. They're Jewish. They're Israelis, not Christian, like just non-Christian Jewish Israelis. But it was vacation in Israel, and they turned out to be students from, I think, Tel Aviv University. They're also on vacation, and they went to Turkey for like a week of vacation. And I just met them in a mosque, and I heard them speak Hebrew, and, I said, hey, I started speaking to them in Hebrew. And so, we spent some time together in Istanbul. That was a mosque in Istanbul. And that was a lot of fun, Israelis are a lot of fun to be with. I have a lot of Israeli friends. In the future, I'll share with you photos of my Israeli friends, and you will love them, So yeah, stay tuned. Don't forget to check back every day, because you don't know when you will see the photos of my Israeli friends, But anyway, yeah. So that was the mosque, and then do you see that place? I didn't even know about it before I went over to Turkey. It's called Pamukkale. It's like natural waters from the ground, and people go there to, dip in the hot springs or the springs, and for some reason the whole terrain is white. It's like natural uh, earth stone. I guess it's kind of similar to the stones in Cappadocia. Come to think about it, those Cappadocia stones are white too, but I don't think it's the same material. And funny thing, it's like a big tourist site, so I should have been aware. But I ran into to people from Hebrew University of Jerusalem who were there. I mean, they're actually undergraduates. They're doing their junior year abroad, so they were, you know, I was a PhD student at UCLA, and I was there as a visiting research fellow. But there were like over 1,000 undergraduates who were doing junior year abroad from like 100 different countries. And those are actually Americans, those ladies in bikini. They're all Americans. I think, if I remember correctly, one was from Brandeis University, one was from Boston College, one was from maybe Dartmouth College, and I think another one was from Bernard. I can't remember exactly, but so yeah, if you know, so yeah, I just, it was fun, spending time with them. I got a little attention, they like me, so hey, what's not to like about me, right? So I hung out with them. I didn't know I was going to run into them, so I was just wearing my shorts, and my like yeah, I wasn't really wearing my swimming trunk because I was traveling alone, and I had all my stuff with me, my wallet, my passport. I didn't want to lose it, so I wasn't in my swimming gear, but yeah, so I ran into them and we ended up spending time together, which was kind of fun. But yeah, but they were going as a group, so 4 of them, so their safety in numbers, I guess. So yeah, so it was really fun running into people you knew from back in Jerusalem, because there are 1,000 of them. I got to know most of them. I'm a very social guy, so I got to know most of them. I threw several parties at our dormitory. I told you about my roommates before. So Serge Gordman and Simon Newell and Sarman. And Sarman, he was the secret police, works for the Israeli secret police. You gotta watch my other episode to see the whole context. This Druzi guy, local Yoko from a Druzi village in near Nazareth, up north in Israel. And he was secret police. He was always in the police station doing secret police stuff. But he was a law student at Hebrew University of Jerusalem. But the 3 of us, Simon Yole, Serge Gorman, and me, we were there, from Simon from Scotland and Serge from France and me from the United States. So I wanted to do things social, get to know all these people, and there are 1,000 people doing their year abroad at Rothberg School of Hebrew University of Jerusalem for their junior year abroad. So I wanted to get to know them. So I threw all these parties at my tiny little apartment, Edelson apartment, and so I got to know a lot of people. So yeah, everybody from that time knows me. Yeah, I'm very famous. People love me, people know me. Yeah, but anyway, so I'm sure there are people from that time running around. Actually, I'm positive there are, because there's Hillary, who's a professor, adjunct professor of law at the law school at Georgetown University. She was there when I was there. So, hey, Hillary, and she knows me. She knows how popular I was when I was there. And Corey, he's teaching. He's like a assistant director of Russia Studies Institute at George Washington University. Or maybe he's the director now. I think he was the assistant director at School of Foreign Service, School of Foreign Service at Georgetown for a while, after getting his PhD in Russian studies at MIT, and he did his bachelor's at Stanford. And then I think he was recruited by George Washington University. He's, I think right now, the director of Russian Studies Institute at GW. So he knows how popular I was when I was at Hebrew University. Yeah, I mean, everybody knew me, everybody loved me. I was really, really popular. So yeah, I have witnesses who can prove this. Hillary from Georgetown Law School and professor at Georgetown Law School, and Corey Veld, who's the director of Russian Studies at George Washington University. So hey, Corey, hey, Hillary. Yeah, we should like hang out sometime. But I've been like intensely working on my nursing program at Georgetown. I'm doing 2 years of intensive master's program at the School of Nursing and Health Studies, and it's called clinical nurse leader. And it's like, oh my gosh, so much studying all the time, studying nursing all the time, so yeah, most of us do not have a life, for 2 years. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, once I graduate and, settle down, is hopefully as a U.S. congressman, we can hang out. Maybe I could even hire you, because you're like, what? Corey's like an expert in Russian studies. Maybe I could like ask him to come to testify to U.S. Congress and give us advice about Russia. Yeah, I mean, I could do that. If I become a congressman, I could do that. So Corey, we could kind of meet on social and professional levels. So vote for me for U.S. Congress. I have a lot of like good ideas. And Hillary, she's an amazing person. Um, yeah, and maybe I'll talk more about them another time. But yeah, it's just like nostalgia. They're really nice people. I enjoy spending time with them in Israel. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, a lot of fun stories from Israel, fun pictures from Israel. So look forward to all these exciting stuff in the future. But anyway, yeah, I guess I'll bid you happy Cinco de Mayo. Hopefully you celebrate it in some way. If not, it's still till May 5th, so you still have time to celebrate. So I hope you have fun and celebrate Cinco de Mayo. I hope today's show helped you and you had fun time as well as learn something new. So tune back in tomorrow. There's another exciting show waiting for you. I hope that you will be well and that your family will be well too. See you tomorrow.